Okay, welcome to the Sunday Lovecraft eZine show. We are live, and it is April the 5th, 2015, sorry, Easter. So, happy Easter, everybody. And today we've got Peter Kuplowski. I'm saying that right? And
Yes, you are.
you're the producer of an upcoming horror movie called The Void.
Mm-hmm.
uh, which has which has been successfully funded. They've got 5 or 6 days left, I believe. I linked to it in the show. Pardon
Thank
me, on
you
the
so much.
website. Um, but there's a lot of Lovecraftian themes in the movie, right? Still there, Peter?
Yeah, I'm still here.
There's a lot of Lovecraftian themes in the movie, as I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a film that came out of the filmmakers, I should say, Steve Kostansky and Jeremy Gillespie. They've been making films for about 10 years. They were originally based in Winnipeg, and they're now based in Toronto. And they were part of a collective called Astron Six, and they did a lot of sort of faux grindhouse or retro genre spoofs, and they were actually known for making satires and spoofs for a long time. They did a film called Manboard, which was a spoof of not so much Star Wars and RoboCop, but the films that ripped RoboCop and Star Wars off, like Eliminators and Star Crash. And they made another film called Father's Day, which was a sort of a spoof of films like Thriller, the girl they call her One Eye, and another film recently was a spoof of Giallo films. But Steve has on his own made a number of shorts that were quite serious and dealt with very dark subject matter. There's a short I recommend people checking out to kind of see what the vibe of The Void might be more like, a film called Heart of Carl, and it was all about a
Where can
man
they
whose
find that?
brother,
If I can
Heart of
interrupt.
Carl. Yeah, it's there's the Astron 6 website.
Okay.
Is astron-6.com, and if you go to movies, I think on the movie page you can find a number of their spoofs. But there's a short called Heart of Carl, and I think the full short is there if you click it. And the Heart of Carl is all about a man whose brother is a literal monster. He's this sort of creature that he has to take to this hospital for monsters, and he leaves him there, and then several years later has to return to the hospital and collect him. And that was a movie that Steve made that was personally a lot about his own brother and sort of his own sort of relationship with his brother, and his worry that maybe he wouldn't be there for his brothers at some point. But he creates a really evocative and disturbing, surreal atmosphere. Steve and Jer grew up on films like Prince of Darkness, and The Thing is one of their favorite movies, John Carpenter's film, and they really felt like they hadn't seen a movie in a while that was both scary but also had sort of iconic creatures, and that kind of dealt with this sense of cosmic horror, this idea that there's forces that are beyond comprehension or beyond our sort of known world. And so The Void was a project that they knew they wanted to do a horror film in a hospital, because they found the idea of a hospital as this kind of border world between life and death really interesting, and they knew they
And they're
wanted to do
really
something that
spooky.
had
You know,
scope to
I've
it.
been in the hospital, and they're really spooky at night. It's a good
Oh,
setting,
yeah.
you know.
Um, my brother, when I was young, my brother had appendicitis, and I remember spending a few weeks in the hospital with him as a family. And at night, I remember there's something very uncanny about those spaces.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to kind of load all these imageries from movies that they liked and books they'd read and video games that they played, like the Silent Hill video games are a big influence. And they kind of wanted a project that they could fuel all this stuff into, but not to satirize it, because they kind of got that out of their system with their other movies. They wanted to do something that would be scary, that they could create really impressive and cool-looking monsters for, and that they could engage with some of these themes.
Well, and I don't say this in a derogatory way at all, just for lack of a better term, for small filmmakers, I was, not big studio filmmakers, maybe a better way to phrase it. I was very impressed when I saw their teaser trailer for The Void. I get sent a lot of projects that people want me to promote, and I looked at this, and it's really amazing the work that they're doing.
Thank you.
Very
Both Steve and
professional.
Jared, I should say, they do these indie projects on the side, but for the last 10 years, they've been slowly becoming veterans of sort of bigger shows. Steve and Jeremy both worked on Pacific Rim, not like in a major capacity, like lower on the rung, but they contributed to those films. The second Silent Hill film, Resident Evil, I don't know which number, one of the higher numbers, and Crimson Peak. I believe they did some work on Crimson Peak, the new Guillermo del Toro film. And so they have experience working on a professional Hollywood capacity, but they also have a lengthy experience of just working with very little resources. And so that teaser was done over a series of weekends with sort of different elements that Steve could find from different shows that he was working on that he could kind of stitch together and pull together so that they could create those effects. But we're really excited at the reaction people have gotten because it was produced quite much in a vacuum. We didn't really know what people would think about it, and so it's great to hear that you guys liked it.
Yeah, I mean, and you got some really great quotes from some notable people here on your Indiegogo page. I just want to read one of them. Well, two of them because the second one's really funny. A full-blown fright fest with its sights firmly aimed at unspeakable Lovecraftian horror. For those who are looking for the next big thing, look no further than The Void. Vincenzo Natali, if I'm saying his name right, director of Cube and Splice. Cube, that's a great movie.
Yeah, and a really smart movie in terms of just from a filmmaking standpoint of how to tell a really original and interesting story in a very economical way.
Yeah.
It's just one room, and they kept, I don't know if people realize it, but they built one set, and they just changed the color of the lights, and that would tell you that you're in a different cube.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was a really, really simple idea.
And the second quote, and I want to see this movie because I've linked to it a couple times, a movie called Spring that's got some, apparently some major Lovecraftian themes. But Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson are the directors. Yeah, this is just a funny quote. Look, I don't know about you, but a world without Manborg is a world I don't want to live in. So I ask you, what are you depriving the world of if you don't help make the void exist? If you don't help make the void exist, then fuck you. Seriously.
Those filmmakers are pretty funny. Became friends with them because Manborg and their first film Resolution was on the festival circuit around the same time. And I work for the Toronto International Film Festival, and we screened Spring. We premiered there, and I definitely recommend checking out Spring. I mean, they've been joking that it's kind of a hybrid movie to end all hybrid movies because some people have called it like Richard Linklater meets David Cronenberg, Lovecraft meets a sort of a holiday romance postcard, but it's a very very funny, very sweet, very interesting movie.
Let me ask you this before I forget, because you're funded, but can you talk about instead of people saying, okay, they're funded and there's no reason to go to the Indiegogo page, is there some neat perks that they can get by contributing? I know there are. Can you talk about them a little bit?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and even when our campaign concludes, I mean, there'll be the basic, if people want some of our posters or T-shirts, like those will still be available. We got these limited prints from some of my favorite horror artists. Not Jason Edmiston, he did something else for us, but Gary Pullen, Graham Humphreys, who did a lot of the UK Evil Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street posters. He did one of our posters, and then Justin Erickson from Phantom City Creative did one of our posters, and so those ones are great. But we also have opportunities to even be in the movie.
Oh wow! Okay.
And there's two perks in which you can either be one of the patients in the hospital, and when I say patients, I'm actually referring to these sort of inhuman patients that are being kept in the basement of the hospital, and so you'd be wearing like a full prosthetic sort of appliance. And then there's the cult members, because there's a cult that figures in the film, these monks that sort of wear all white and have this black triangle that's sort of the symbol of their order and what they worship. Excuse me, my cat has been meowing. Hang on a second, I just got to open the door to let him out.
I was actually just wondering if it was one of my cats. Hey, Pete.
Hey, guys.
Sorry about my cat being a little...
Oh, no, you're fine. I've got 5 of them, so I understand. Okay, so there's some really cool perks.
And you can actually keep the costume. That's sort of the benefit of that one. So you get to come to set, be the character, and be the character for a day, and then go home with your costume. So you can either go home with like a full mask of your sort of monstrous patient, or you can go home as a cult worshiper of the void.
Cool. So that's not Lovecraftian at all. Well, speaking of that, without spoilers, of course, could you talk a little bit about the Lovecraftian themes of the movie, or what they're going for, or even if you just have to stick to mood, whatever you want to talk about?
Well, in the teaser, I think the one shot that is sort of meant to cue that idea is that image of the pyramid and of sort of the desert and there's this notion that the film is sort of exploring that a lot of sort of people have their own kind of idea of what the afterlife might be like, or what awaits us on the other side, and what Steve and Jeremy are coming up is a mythology that kind of literalizes the idea that there is some kind of other realm, and it might not necessarily be an afterlife, but a dimension that sort of overlaps our own dimension, kind of similar to the idea in say like from Beyond or something like that, but this idea that there's this other dimension that is sort of in communication with our world, and
so when you die, you sort of transition over to it.
Yeah, it's sort of more of a transitioning, and then so the idea is that this cult is kind of co-opting this hospital as kind of a site for that kind of transition. And that's probably as much as Steve and Jer will permit me to kind of get into the idea, because I don't want to. Some of the ideas get teased out as sort of twists along in the film, but that image of this pyramid and this sort of other realm is something that's going to figure very importantly in the sort of final act of the film, and as the characters sort of become aware of this other world that's sort of in communication with our own.
Well,
and then the monsters themselves. I mean, we've got tentacles, and I mean some of the more obvious iconic tropes are there, that there's just these sort of monsters that don't take any kind of real shape, or they're constantly reshaping and refiguring themselves like sort of Shaggoths.
That adds to the fear element a lot. More of a fear of the unknown instead of you've seen the monster, so at least you know what it looks like. Always takes away a little bit of the fear. And
I know Steve. It's interesting because we both have an interest in creating something that's iconic, but not something that is like a carbon copy that can. There's just multiple versions of like one kind of monster. The idea is that anytime you see the monster in the movie, it's going to look a little different. It's going to take on different forms. I mean, that's one of the reasons we love The Thing so much, is because the monsters and The Thing on their own can be very iconic, but the fear of that movie, it's never the same thing. It's always every time it appears, it's this other sort of nightmarish representation of a bunch of different ideas and elements.
Rick, I was going to say to Rick, he walked away for a second, but I think Pete, you've read Revival too, but Stephen King's Revival. I'm not going to get any spoilers into that, but what Peter was just talking about a minute ago here almost sounds like the ending of Revival. So.
There have been other writers who've used that idea too, probably before King.
Yeah, it's a pretty horrifying idea.
Because I remember Bob Price even did an article on Lovecraft's view of the afterlife, or somebody, it might not have been Bob, somebody in Cryptic Cthulhu wrote an article like that.
Matt, you guys got questions for Peter?
Sort of. Okay, now, if I understand this Indiegogo campaign, it's really just to help with the special creature effects, meaning it's not the main production budget for the movie.
Yeah.
Not if
Yeah.
you.
The idea is Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Finish the question.
Well, and then my thought is, okay, well, geez, if you made this much money for production effects, where's the rest of the production budget coming from? And do y'all have a timeline for filming?
Peter told me
Yeah,
he was
we do have a timeline. Yeah, no, there's different funding sources that I can't, legal reasons, speak to at the moment. But the idea is we are actually on our way to scheduled for shooting in August.
Great.
What this funding is for is that the money that's being made available to us for the production is not going to be activated until about 8 weeks before shooting. And to build on the scale that we want to build these monsters and creatures effects on, we want to start early. We want to actually have a shop going, because what often happens is with independent films is pre-production starts about 8 weeks from the production window when you're shooting, and that means everyone kind of rushes together and gets a bunch of things, and they bring things to set and they shoot what they can. And actually, one of the reasons why CGI has become such a crux even on independent productions is because it's easier to pay for stuff when the movie's already in the can and you're in post-production and you're solving problems by inserting stuff in there. And it's very important for Steve and Jeremy that we build as much as we can in advance before production, so that we can actually have creatures on the set interacting with the actors. And if you look at a film like The Thing, they had a full 11 months of pre-production time to build their monsters, and they only had that because there was a strike that occurred that actually delayed their production. So the money had started coming in, and they were going to shoot in a few weeks, and then there was this strike, and they couldn't shoot, and they went on hiatus. But they actually had the startup capital already in place, so the creature shop could just start building and manufacturing and resculpting and making these effects well in advance. And so that was kind of a model that was really attractive to Steve and Jeremy, which was like, well, what if we set a date, we fund for that date, but then we also figure out a way of how we can get started early so that we can realize the ambition we have, because it's still very much an independently funded movie, and so we're not working on a Hollywood level, but we want to have that kind of Hollywood pre-production window that independent films rarely get a chance to have. So that's sort of the logic behind why we're funding specifically for the special effects, because otherwise, if we were funding for the whole movie, we would probably have a bigger funding goal, and then I also think it wouldn't be a very realistic funding goal, because I've seen other projects that try to fund the whole movie, and I feel like sometimes that's a mistake. It's better to find the resources so that you can make the movie, and then if you're going to use crowdfunding is great to build an audience and to get them engaged with the film, because some of our perks are actually a chance for the audience to actually engage with the film properly. We're going to be producing a cult sort of diary, and every contributor is able to fill out a diary page or draw a picture, and it'll be included into this film prop that will be like this exquisite corpse of different diary entries.
Is that what this Book of the Void is, Peter?
Yeah, that's what Book of the Void is going to be. So we're actually going to produce a digital version. Yeah, it's kind of like a Necronomicon that has sort of been crowdsourced by all of our contributors. Yeah. So this was a way to engage the community, but also provide us a means of starting early, because otherwise we get the funding to shoot the movie, but we'd be starting and probably have to rely on CG more than we'd like to, just because we wouldn't be able to build everything in time, just because there's only so many days before you have to basically start shooting. Because when money comes in at this sort of level, there's interest on it too, because there's expectation of return on investment. So you have to, once you get it, you have to make the movie as quickly as possible, because the money that you've been given, is expected to pay off eventually. So that's sort of the logic behind the campaign.
The other thing I remember, the last Lovecraft was kind of a comedy horror movie, and I
remember that movie.
They wanted to make a sequel, and they set an outrageous funding goal on Kickstarter, and they made less than 10% of that in pledges. And it's like, well, it's just because I think sometimes if you're too ambitious in our little genre, then it's like you can't generate the excitement that will push you over your funding goal. You won't even meet it.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes, because sometimes people will look at it and go, well, I just don't believe it's going to get to that goal, and so that even prevents them from throwing, especially with something like Indiegogo too, which runs flexible campaigns. Like with Kickstarter, sometimes you can take that risk, because Kickstarter, oftentimes the campaigns function where if it's not funded, your investment returns to you. But with Indiegogo, it can be trickier, so I can totally see how that can dissuade people from contributing because it just seems unrealistic.
Yeah. When do you guys expect, okay, you're done filming, everything's done, that people can watch the movie, and where and how?
Well, the hope is that early 2016 we'll be beginning our festival tour. We do want to get it to film festivals, and so there's several festivals in the first quarter of 2016 that we hope we'll be in, and then after that it's a matter of who buys it and when it comes out. This is been a long fermenting project, so there are distributors that are aware of the film. So I'm confident that it's a film that will find a home rather quickly, but it probably won't appear in an accessible format until 2016. Definitely on screens in 2016, and we'll see. I mean, we'd love for it to have a theatrical release, but I think in this day and age of independent filmmaking, just getting like a video on demand or home video release is kind of the best bet, because sometimes a theatrical can kind of just be, you're out for a weekend, and it can kind of be a thing that filmmakers like to have, but isn't actually seen much for the distributor on an independent level, just because independent films and smaller distributors don't have the marketing power that like Furious 7 has, so they can't.
It's also a little easier. You're sitting at home and you're flicking through your Amazon. Yeah, you're like, oh, that looks interesting. I think I'll rent that tonight and watch it.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, maybe this is a dumb question, but will it then eventually, late 2016, sometime in 2017, I can go to Amazon and buy it or rent it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, our Steve's last film, Manborg, is available on Amazon, and that was a film. He shot that film for like $2,000 US, and it was in his garage with cardboard boxes, stop animation, really lo-fi. I mean, the reason it looks as good as it does for that much money is just he spent years on it, and he never intended for it to go anywhere. And but then after I came on board the project, and a few other people came on board the project, we were able to sort of convince them that no, people should check this movie out. It's a fun time. And yeah, it played festivals for about a year, and then it got picked up by a number of distributors, and you can get it on Amazon, and it even got released in Germany and Japan. And I think The Void will be much quicker now that Steve has an established audience. Now that the campaign is as successful as it was, I think it's more of an attractive project for distributors. So I'm pretty positive that by the end of 2016 you'll be able to pick it up on Amazon or on Blu-ray.
You really got to admire somebody that just does creates something because they love it, they want it to be great, they want it to be perfect, and then it's so great when other people start noticing that too, which sounds like exactly what happened with Manborg.
Yeah, and Steve and Jay are big perfectionists. They just sit and work on something until they're happy with it, and they were content kind of working on their own projects and just for the love of doing it. And it wasn't until they played enough film festivals when people such as myself, and there's a few other people out there as well who noticed their work and just started wanting to support it and encouraging them to get to this next level. And they also participated in the ABCs of Death anthology. They did W is for Wish, which I'm not sure if anyone saw, but it was kind of a spoof of He-Man commercials, where two children are playing with He-Man action figures and going, Oh, we've made up our own mythology, so it's not He-Man. It's Fantasy Man, Prince Cassio, Lord Zorb, and they basically one of the children says, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if I wish we could help Prince Cassio fight the forces of evil?" And then they get teleported into wherever the science fiction battle is taking place, and it is horrifying and scary and not at all a fun time. And the children are in the midst of like a Saving Private Ryan battle, but in intergalactic space against aliens and such.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that was another project, though, that, like The Void, just came out of them, their sort of conversations, and Steve sculpting stuff, and Jer sort of coming up with different ideas that he thought would be really interesting to visualize, and they just kind of started doing it, and then when someone noticed it and said, why don't we actually make this a thing, they're like, oh, sure, yeah, let's do that. And so the Void really came out of a similar place, where they were just having sort of an organic discussion of, one of them, I think, had watched Hellraiser 2 recently. Someone else had watched Exorcist 3 and was like, oh, man, there hasn't been a hospital movie. I want to do a hospital movie. And it's like, oh, I really want to do a movie with really creative creature effects design. And I think then both of them had watched The Keep, Michael Mann's The Keep, and were like, oh, there's just something so great about the atmosphere of that film. And they just started having this conversation.
I like it.
Pardon?
It gets The Keep. I like it. It gets.
Yeah, it's an imperfect movie, but I think when they were talking about it, they sort of focused on the stuff that did work. Because there's stuff in the movie that maybe doesn't work, but it's also clearly a compromised movie.
I had Paul Wilson on the show about a year ago, and he mentioned.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, ugh,
There were also there are two versions of that movie.
Yeah, exactly. There are.
There's one where he dies, and there's one where it's like the book where the Kraken lives. Because I first rented it on VHS, and he died, and then I later saw it on television, and he lived.
I didn't know there were two versions of that movie.
Well, what ending did you see when you saw it? The one where he lives or the one where he dies?
There's I saw the version where he lives, but there's a version, I think, is it still on YouTube? There was a version on YouTube that someone put up of, like, I'm not going to say director's cut, but it was kind of like an assembly cut of the film that I skimmed through, and then I couldn't find it again recently. But that's a movie. There's actually a documentary. I don't know if you guys saw that documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune, but there's a documentary that's got that same kind of level of sort of in-depth of a what-if scenario, and it talks about kind of what kind of movie The Keep could have been, and different sort of behind-the-scenes anecdotes about the movie by, I think the director's name is Stu Buck, and let me see if I can find information on it. But when we were developing The Void, we went to a co-production market to kind of raise interest, and there's a filmmaker that's developing a documentary on The Keep that looks really interesting, and they unearthed a lot of thought to have been extinct behind-the-scenes interviews, and they have like an 8-hour interview on 16mm with Michael Mann on set that's never been seen before, and so I'm really excited to see that documentary come out. I can't find the name of it though, but just keep your eyes out for it.
I will. I got a question from the audience, Peter. Dwayne Stockton wants to know if, I'm assuming he's talking about you, if he could change anything about any Stuart Gordon Lovecraft movie, I assume you're asking, Dwayne, which would it be and which one? I think he's asking you about the Stuart Gordon movies. Have you seen all of those? There's Dagon and there's Reanimator. And
you know what? I still haven't seen Dagon. That's the one I really want to. Watch that.
You got to see that. That's the best one.
Yeah, that's what people have been telling me, and I really love Shadow over Innsmouth. Like, that's one of my favorite stories, and so I like. And it seems like that's the vibe that one's going for a bit.
Yeah, it's Innsmouth in Spain, more or less.
Right.
It's Volk. You know, some of you say Innsmouth in Spanish.
Boca, I believe.
Yeah.
So I got to see that one. And then I've seen Reanimator. I mean, Reanimator's great, but it's like also like a full-on comedy. And so it'd be interesting to see a straighter version of that, perhaps, even though I love Reanimator. And then From Beyond, I also really dig, but again would also like to see kind of a version of that film that's a little play more straight. There was a film called I program films for the Toronto After Dark Film Festival, and I'm embarrassed to say that I'm blanking on the name of this movie that we played a few years ago that was sort of loosely based on ideas from Beyond. Ted Levine was in it, and it was the idea that the MK Ultra experiments, LSD experiments in the 50s were actually activating.
No, I know what that movie is. We've talked about that on the show before.
Yeah.
Rollick, when Rollick comes back, I think he's seen it. I actually have it on my Lovecraftian movies list, so let me take a quick look.
Pete, this is a movie with Ted Levine about, what was it, LSD experiments?
Yeah, MK Ultra stuff.
Yeah, Rollick, you remember that title?
I'm sorry, what are we talking about?
The From Beyond movie with MK Ultra and...
Yeah, From Beyond-ish kind of ideas in it. It didn't really pay off as well as I kind of hoped, but it had some good scares, and I liked.
It's Banshee.
Banshee chapter. Banshee chapter. Yeah. It like kind of hinted at that idea, and I got really excited, but then it didn't necessarily follow through in the way I hoped it was going. But
well, the other fascinating thing about it was, though, the number stations. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, number stations are so scary. I have a friend who's really into number stations, and he plays me those recordings, and that stuff is terrifying. That stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it's just because it's something that's both familiar and strange at the same time. You're able to kind of understand elements of it, but you don't understand the larger picture. I thought it was such a smart idea.
What's
do you have the Coyne box set?
The box set?
Do you own the Coyne box set?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's absolutely riveting.
Cool.
It's a 5 CD box set of number station recordings.
Oh, my friend. You know what? My friend probably owns that. That's probably what he was playing.
And there's actually a Coyne website where you can play like 12 hours worth. You can just click and it'll play all day long, one after the other.
I don't think I can do that to myself.
Of course, you get the more famous things like the Lincolnshire Poacher and whatnot, but you get some obscurities that, and some things are just downright psychedelic, but they're not meant to be, which makes them all the creepier.
Yeah.
Yeah, number stations are a real gas. Sorry,
No. That's I agree. I thought that was such a. I'd love to see more movies or any more fiction in general. Just kind of engage. I think a radio drama about number stations would be pretty awesome.
Oh yeah.
That's a great idea. Joe and I were discussing yesterday. I've got a lot of projects for Lovecraft eZine on the plate, and I don't want to add another one right now and then disappoint people when it takes 3 more months to get to it. But in about a year, I got some really talented audio drama folks lined up, and we're going to do King in Yellow. But that would be a really good idea too down the line to do some kind of Lovecraftian number station story. That would be neat. Yeah. Another question from the audience, Peter. Shauna says, wants to know filming locations, or approximately.
All I can say is that it's going to be in Ontario and probably Northern Ontario at the moment. We're building effects in Toronto, but we'll be shooting up in Northern Ontario.
Okay.
And it's largely going to take place within a hospital, and we have a couple options on the table, and we actually released a few weeks ago, maybe it might have been a month ago at this point, but a location scout that we did. I'll find it right now and throw it into the chat, and it just shows you an example of one of the locations we were exploring as a possible place to shoot at least some of this movie. I just threw it into the chat there, and maybe you guys can throw it onto the public chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Matt, would you mind doing that? Okay, another question for the audience then, and you guys please speak up if you have questions. Dwayne wants to know too, if Peter had an unlimited budget and backing, I assume this question would be also for the directors if you know their answer, but and backing by a major studio, what would be you guys' dream movie to make?
I think, yeah. I know that they Steve and Jer both have a kaiju movie in them, like their own kind of Japanese monster movie. They definitely would love to do some sort of Earth Defense Force, something a little lighter, but like a light kind of Japanese style sort of monster film. I also know Steve is a very big fan of the Doom video games and has never been quite satisfied with any of the adaptations and would love to do a real kind of, because the one element that he feels that the Doom has never really it was missing from later Doom games and from the movie is that there was something kind of medieval about the spaces in the old Doom PC game, the doors and the kind of the imagery of hell when you enter hell that's never really kind of been thrown on the screen, and so he's always been kind of obsessed with doing a Doom adaptation.
My wife and I used to play that game when in the mid to late 90s. You know, we'd play on the computer. One of us would drive, and the other one, mostly I would watch over her shoulder, but she would never play it by herself.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty scary, or it could be, at least back then.
Yeah, and I think Steve's a guy who's always been interested in representations of hell and the afterlife, and I think to kind of take the sort of action of the Doom world, and just because it's nostalgic to him, because it was a game that he grew up with, I know that he would absolutely love to realize that in some way. Me personally, my dream project would be I'd love to do some kind of I'm a big science fiction fan, and I love interstellar travel, and I would love to do some kind of space road movie, kind of like Easy Rider in Space or something like that, like just an idea of like space truckers and kind of space bikers just kind of going through the universe on not even yeah, not even like a with a set destination, but kind of just running into different people in society. I would love some kind of space movie like that. That's kind of a little listless, and not sort of your subway stop plotting of like gotta save the world. It's like just gotta save our own skin kind of thing. Gotta get to the next asteroid.
On Venus, we always had fun on Mars. Yeah.
Have you guys seen The American Astronaut? That's the film that kind of reminds me of that. It's like a low-budget version of the idea that I'd like to see on a bigger scale. But it's about a guy who drives a train through space, and he goes to this bar on Ceres, and he has a job where he has to transport someone from Venus to Jupiter, I think, or Jupiter to Venus. Yes, he has to transport someone from Jupiter to Venus, and it's just really lo-fi, gorgeous cinematography. It's a musical as well. But I recommend The American Astronaut if you get a chance. It's pretty great. But I'd love to do something like that on a bigger scale.
I'm sorry for everybody watching. I did mention in the on the website and on Twitter, but got one more of these bad boys to give away, and I'll do a random giveaway in a little bit here. And that's courtesy of the talented ladies at littlestlovecraft.com, so check that out. I was going to ask you. Oh, I hope that I know Steve had we got our Easter stuff mixed up, and he's doing Easter with his family. But maybe when you guys get the movie done or whatnot, you and him can come back on. You said something a minute ago about him being fascinated with the afterlife and different possibilities of the afterlife. And it always strikes me that it's kind of this general assumption. I'd love to get his feeling and take on it, that if there's an afterlife, then it's got to be, if you're good, you go to heaven. If you're bad, you go to hell. But there's no, if there's an afterlife, there's no guarantee of that at all.
I'm gonna. There's a punchline in Manborg that is kind of about this. The plot of Manborg is that at some point a scientist basically is doing scientist things. He's typing on a computer and he accidentally opens the gates to hell. Demons come, and there's even a gag where he's hitting the backspace button because he's like, "Oops." It's a big crazy comedy. But at the end of the movie is basically takes place where hell has taken over the world, and Draculon, who's like the leader of hell, the Hell Army, is kind of enslaved the human race. And at the end of the film, the main character is Manborg is kind of like sacrificing himself, and he makes his heroic sacrifice, and a character appears that had died earlier in the film, and he appears as kind of a Star Wars-esque Force ghost, and he says, "Hey, bro, remember me?" And the other character sort of smiles, and then the ghost character frowns and goes, "There's no heaven." And so the idea is that there was just hell. So that even though the movie kind of literalized that, yeah, there was this afterlife that opened up and everyone came into the world, there's not a better place. So that the guy who died just probably ended up in hell with everybody else. So that was like one of the big punchlines in Manborg. That joke.
If you watch the teaser trailer for The Void, it's something to the effect of there's hell and this is worse.
Yes, yeah. Which was almost kind of a callback to that Manborg joke that there is a hell, but there is no heaven.
So stay alive as long as you can.
Yeah. I mean, another movie that I know Steve is a fan of was, and again, it's an imperfect movie, but there's cool stuff in it. Was something like Event Horizon, which is a neat kind of idea of a kind of afterlife and a kind of hell that could just be another dimension.
Well, tell Steve if he has not read Stephen King's newest book, Revival. I don't want to say another word about why, but he would be interested in it.
Absolutely, we'll pass it on.
Yeah.
Because we're still it's been a fluid process too. Like there's still stuff that's like feeding into the movie, so I'm sure he'll be really excited to pick something like that up because it does sound like it's on a similar wavelength.
Yeah, it is. Guys, we got any more? You guys got questions for Peter?
I'm curious about what Bad Lieutenant is behind him.
Oh, that's a couple years ago. I went to when I was in New York. There's a video store called Videology, and there was a screening of Bad Lieutenant, the Abel Ferrara film that was playing at the Anthology Film Archives, and they had these really cool sort of crayon posters that were really lo-fi printed on newsprint. So I grabbed one for myself. Yeah, and the other one there's the Eye, which is the Taiwanese Chinese horror film, which I don't even know why. I think my posters usually tend to be if it stayed on the wall, like it didn't fall down, it's staying up. So that one stayed on the wall.
That one looks like they ripped off The Omen.
Yeah, and and then there's a Manborg poster right below it, and I run a series in Toronto called the Laser Blast Film Society with my friend Justin DeClue, and the Laser Blast Film Society is a celebration of sort of bizarre, weird, obscure movies, particularly from 1980 to 1997, because our gimmick in our first sort of series run of films was that we were screening everything. It was either shot on video or shot for the video market, so there is not a DVD available. It never survived the format transition because it was kind of about shedding light on these movies and also being a bit media specific. So we couldn't afford getting film prints, but we could afford getting VHS tapes, and we could be like, well, the filmmaker intended them to appear on VHS because there was no other format for them at the time. And they were made for the video market, and so I've got a couple posters for that series there as well.
Pete, does your dog have a question?
No, he just wants attention.
What
Go ahead,
breed
Rick.
is it?
What's that?
What breed is that, Pete?
We think he's a Coton de Talor. He's a rescue. So it's a subbreed of Bichon Frise.
For the audience, also, I should have said at the beginning that after we're done talking to Peter, we're going to talk about, got a couple more topics. Should be a really good show. Joe's got a book coming up. They just announced the NecronomiCon panels for the Lovecraftian convention in August, so I want to discuss that with you guys a little bit. Doom That Came to Gotham, for anyone that missed my post the other day, is being collected into an omnibus, so we'll talk about that stuff. But all right, dumb question for you, since I'm not in film. You're the producer.
I'm a co-producer on the film, actually.
Co-producer. What does a co-producer do?
I mean, I find that the answer to what a producer does is simply they do whatever they can to get the movie made, and there's no right path. Movies, there's many different ways to make a movie, and the producers are just the guys that are involved in figuring out how that's going to happen. I came aboard this project because I've known Steve for several years. I've produced and helped him develop his short films and work on Manborg. And basically, when he and JR came up with this idea called The Void, which the original title of the film, actually, the working title was just Scary Hospital, which I still miss because I quite liked how blunt that was. But that would be more for their comic sensibility. But I just been with the project for about 3 years, helping develop it, getting it to the producer and the production company that they're with today, which is Cave Painting Pictures, and
it's like whatever needs to be done, you do it.
Yeah, basically. And then, I mean, for this campaign, I basically took that on to run that, and then when this wraps, I'll be helping with further with pre-production. I'll be less involved during the production period because that's the producer that we brought onto this project to sort of option the film, and then I'll be back in sort of post-production again, just helping in both creative places and in sort of logistical places in terms of introducing people to the project and lobbying for it. And, stuff like that. My background is film festivals. I work for a couple film festivals, and over the years doing that, I've made contacts with distributors and such, and so my expertise is kind of in terms of helping sell the film.
Okay. I don't know if you can answer this for Steve, or just yourself, or both of you, or how long you've known Steve, but I'm just curious about, this is a film with some Lovecraftian themes, obviously, while you're here. Have you guys been into Lovecraft for a long time? Are you huge fans? Are you more a fan of the cosmic horror theme? What's your Lovecraftian?
I'm personally a big Lovecraft fan. I've read a lot of the short stories, and I've always been obsessed with, I'd love to do, I mean, it's a cliche project, but I'd love to do an Mountains of Madness kind of story. I just love that procedural element to that story, that it's like a lecture, and that the listening to the radio and hearing all that stuff. And I love, and when I don't know if you guys remember, Guillermo del Toro was supposed to make that movie years ago, but I read his script, and I felt it was too much of an action movie, and I feel like when some people call Lovecraft stories unfilmable because of there's not action in them. I'm like, no, it just means they're not action movies. So just don't try to make an action movie.
Right.
So I mean, they just might be boring for some sensibilities, but they're just more measured, and it's not it's not about a lot of events. Rather, it's a lot of exposition, but sometimes that exposition can be handled in sort of an interesting way. So I personally,
one of the beauties of film is you have this device for exposition called a camera.
Yeah, exactly.
We could talk about cinematographers forever. Yeah. I mean, and let's go back to Lawrence of Arabia again. There's Omar Sharif in the distance. We have this panoramic widescreen. It's just the desert. You are insignificant up against this thing. And here's a dot, and it slowly starts coming towards you. There's not a word. There's hardly anything going on. It takes forever for Sharif on the stallion to get close enough to really define what it is. And yet, it's as valuable as 10 pages that are written out.
Absolutely.
You know?
So I've always been interested in trying to do a Lovecraft story on the scope of something like Mountains of Madness, and I know Steve. I can't speak to Steve.
Well, let me know, because you can do my story called White Fire, which is a sequel to the Mountains of Madness.
Cool.
Yeah, and, there's this mindset I think I've felt for the last several years now that small studios, they can do other Lovecraftian films. They can do music of Eric Zahn, for example, stuff like that. But they can't do At the Mountains of Madness because it'd be too expensive.
Yes, you
but
can.
With crowdfunding, obviously, someone that's proven themselves, like Steve or
he's in Canada. He shoots it in the winter.
Yeah.
You live in Canada.
In New York.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When people describe that project as expensive, I kind of go, well, is it? I mean, you have to.
Yeah, exactly. It can be done.
I think it can be done. I think it's expensive if you're going to add a bunch of action scenes. If you're going to have the movie end with like a Cthulhu monster actually literally like break the mountain apart, like in Fantasia or something like that. Like, yeah, that might be expensive, but that maybe might not be a Lovecraft movie. That might be more of an action movie.
With Tom Cruise going.
Yeah, exactly. And he was going to be in that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Tom. Yeah. So I can't speak to what Steve's. I know Steve has read some Lovecraft, and I know he's a big fan of cosmic horror as a genre, and he's played a lot of video games that use Lovecraft tropes. He's watched a lot of movies that use Lovecraft tropes, and I know he's a big fan of that. Can't speak to his readership, unfortunately, but I binged on Lovecraft pretty heavily 2 years ago too. I just spent a whole summer just rereading everything again and getting just really excited about some of the stories. So it was a kind of a way to prime me to get interested in this project again too, because around that time that's when this project started becoming real.
Well, I'm excited to see this movie when you guys are finished with it. There, as you've been saying, Lovecraftian movies can be done very wrong, and I really do not get that feeling at all from you guys, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this.
That's really great to hear, and I hope we can do it justice.
Sounds like you guys are perfectionists, so I have no doubt.
Yeah, I know Steve's the kind of guy that won't stop until it looks right, until it scares in the right way and unsettles in the right way. So.
That's good. That's great. Any more questions for Peter from you guys?
No, just keep us in the loop.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop. We're going to be doing updates as we start going into production. Some of the people who got high level contributions, like one person actually contributed and their face is going to be life cast as one of the creatures in the film.
Oh, wow.
And so we'll be shooting some of that process and sending that update out so people can kind of see how people are getting involved in the movie. So there'll be plenty of more updates to come.
So
is it like the show Face Off?
Steve's a big fan of that show. Steve works in that makeup effects world. He is a big fan of that show.
So I just posted the link to their Indiegogo. They've got 5 or 6 days left. Sorry, talking to the audience right now. And they are funded, but there's some pretty cool things, as Peter mentioned earlier, that you can get. You can even be in the movie at different levels. So check it out.
Yeah, and if you contribute now, actually, at any level, you get the soundtrack to the film, because that was our milestone. If we had broken the 60K milestone, we were going to just say anyone who contributes can, at any level, will just get the soundtrack to the movie when it's done. And if we get to 70, we have this new idea, because the Book of the Void was really popular, but we have this new idea that if we get to 70, people can send in voices of their screams, moans, chants, and we're going to kind of incorporate that into the soundscape at some point in the film. Because, again, not to spoil things, but when gates open, there's sometimes a lot of noise on the other side. So
yeah, that Necronomicon looking Book of the Void thing is pretty cool.
Yeah,
so.
I can't wait till we actually kind of fabricate it for the movie. Because the idea is that like all those pages that people are submitting are going to be sort of stitched together in kind of a weird way into the book, and so it'll be this weird, like I said, exquisite corpse of art and prose.
Well, Peter, I really appreciate you coming on the show, especially
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it and your reactions to the film. Steve wishes he could be here, and we'll totally do this again sometime.
I don't have things like Easter in my mind real well, so I don't really. I tend to forget to plan.
Neither did we, but our families. So.
Yeah. All right. So I just posted the link again to their Indiegogo, and so check it out, guys. And sometime around, I'm guessing, end of 2016 or in 2017, we can get on Amazon and rent it. So,
yeah,
if I understand you correctly.
That too. Look forward to it. Can't wait for you guys all to see it. I can't wait for myself to see it.
Well, you're welcome to hang out with us, or if you need to go, all you got to do is close your browser. And
I do have to head back to because there's actually an Easter gathering in downstairs that I'm supposed to be at, so I have to run up to that. But no thank you guys so much for having me, and it was great chatting with you guys, and thanks for the support in the film.
Thanks, Peter. Nice to meet you. All you got to do is close your browser and you're fine. Oh, he's got it. Okay. That sounds great. That movie.
So Mike, I have a few things you can put on the giveaway.
All right.
This is a print copy of Innsmouth Magazine number 14. Okay, ooh, so that's one thing. It's pristine, hasn't been read. It's got 5 or 6 stories in it. This is a more substantial book. It's Cumbrian Cthulhu, Volume 4. And I guess this is the 4th anthology of Lovecraftian Lakeland stories. So I just happened to end up with an extra copy. It's also pretty pristine. And then if anyone's interested, I had an extra copy of Lovecraft Annual number 12.
Is that the Joshi thing, or am I thinking of something else?
This is a Hippocampus. It is more scholarship than fiction. For example, there's an article by Michael Sisko about the lurking fear.
That sounds cool.
Language in Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft by this guy named Jamnik. So it's a scholarly book.
No. Is it Lynn Jamnik?
Yeah.
Lynn Jamnik's a woman.
Oh, sorry.
She's an editor and a writer.
Okay.
Oh, Lynn. Yeah, right. Correct. I remember who she is. Okay.
But it's basically, this would be more meaty.
Yeah. Is it cool if I win that? Okay, no, I won't do that. I'll give that to the viewers. Thanks, Matt. All right, so we got NecronomiCon coming up a lot faster than I realized. And I believe it was yesterday or last couple of days they posted a sneak preview of the panels. There's a hell of a lot of them here. let me post it on the message board here. By the way, if you're watching for the first time, which I think a lot of people are, you can interact with us on our Facebook message board. Just go to Facebook and type in Lovecraft eZine public message board and ask to join, and I'll add you. But anyway, I've just added the NecronomiCon schedule. So let's see here. Magic and Eldritch in Practice, the Annotations of Madness, many different collections of Lovecraft's work that are annotated, art, Baby's First Cthulhu, Chambers and the King in Yellow. If only we had someone that could speak on that.
Never heard of any of that kind of stuff.
Clark Ashton Smith, Collecting the Unnameable. Both big publishers and small publishers, small presses alike, are putting out excellent collections of Lovecraftian fiction. How does one put together a quality anthology? I assume I'm on that one, but I don't know. They don't have the people.
Yeah, I can think of two people I would think are on that panel.
Yeah. Cthulhu Plushies, A Sign of the End Times. Eldritch Gaming. That'll be interesting. Forbidden Knowledge, Necronomicon, stuff like that. Here's one on small press publishers. That'll be cool. What's the future of weird fiction? Homage versus plagiarism. No comment.
I think I'm the expert on that.
You're welcome to be. Let's see. Oh, here's Home Again on Providence and Rhode Island. There's just a bunch of stuff. I'd probably be here forever going through all of these. But what looks interesting to you guys? Did you guys look at this?
Yeah, actually, one that I thought I even might be able to contribute to. Well, no one ever asked me any of this stuff. They're doing one on Lovecraftian children's books.
Oh, yeah.
And picture books, which I thought that's an interesting topic because it's so very popular right now with both the women doing the Littlest Lovecraft and Ken Height's mini mythos. So
yeah,
that actually I could suggest that to Niels because I think he'd be a great contributor for that. Remind me later.
But otherwise, it'll be. I frankly would just look at the. My intention is I don't want to overbook myself. I might look at the panelists and say, "Oh, I kind of want to hear that person speak."
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're gonna be in the same boat we're always in. There's inevitably you're gonna miss something because something else you want to see is at the same time. That always happens when we have this much material going on.
Hell of a lot of panels. No, I mean that's a good thing. I'm not saying that negatively.
Yeah.
Lovecraft and Religion panel, a Lovecraft and Philosophy panel, just what is cosmicism? She Walks in Shadows, No More Weird Fiction and Women.
Yep.
Here's a Joshi panel about textual problems in Lovecraft. Lovecraft at the movies.
Yep.
Go ahead.
A music panel.
Yeah. William Hodgson.
I have a question. How do you get invited to one of these panels? Because I would like to be in the King in Yellow one.
Well,
I'm going to talk to Sam Gafford about adding you to that.
Okay.
Niels has asked me for suggestions. If you guys don't have his email and you want to be on some of these, just tell me.
Rick, after that article you wrote, I can't see how you can't be on.
No kidding.
The King in Yellow panel.
Yeah, that was an awesome article.
Thank you. And there will be a sequel.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit in the audience.
By the way, there will be a sequel called Casilda Sang Before. Once I finish the this will be about where Casilda came from.
Here's one that never gets old to me.
Well, according to you.
What?
I said according to him.
Writing mythos. What makes a
No,
story
no, no, no.
Lovecraftian, and how can a writer make a unique and powerful contribution, to this ever-growing genre? Yeah. So, what else is going on at NecronomiCon? We got the panels, got the book.
There might be some drinking.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got the.
Mike.
I was interested in, like, I think Lehman Kessler is bringing his act again, but I thought there were some other people who were going to bring live-action productions. I was really hoping to see another Lovecraft literary podcast performance.
Maybe there is.
But that's not been published yet.
I think there's another Waterfire thing in the works. I'm sure there's another Gala Ball.
Oh, Niels is watching.
Niels is watching.
Niels,
And I was just going to say,
damn it.
there was a couple of things I was going to say, and I'll behave now, and I won't say them, though.
That Niels, I know he's never going to hear this, but he is one hell of a guy, and what a nice guy, What a nice.
Yeah,
Niels, email me if you want the link to get in here.
I hope if he's listening that he starts praying that I don't feel too well in August, because he might not appreciate the bear hug I'm planning on giving him.
I don't know if it's still a go, and I have to get with whoever Neil sends me to. But I put together a trivia contest for the.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, see, I'm Rick's teammate.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's fine. I'm all for that.
There.
well, I would assume if there's a trivia contest, you're barring ST from the proceedings.
I have gotten to a point where I don't think that ST knows the answers to these questions.
Oh, well, yeah, because all you need to do is keep asking, like, postmodern literary questions, and he won't know any of them.
That's right. I mean, if it's somebody published since 1950, you won't know it.
Well, no. Let's keep it in the 21st century.
Okay.
There are also areas, there are, first of all, there's what you know and what you can remember at the drop of a hat.
That's true.
True.
I mean, yeah, I might know a lot. What was the name of that story? Oh my God,
Now, Pete,
Yes.
you were there in Portland when we did the King in Yellow Scotch panel.
Yeah, I believe I was intoxicated on that panel.
Yeah, you were. Well, that was a great. Everybody says that's like one of the greatest panels they ever went to. But what I was thinking is, if you're going to have a game, if they don't get the answer right, you make them drink.
Well, I think we're going to do. The plan is to do it like I
That could prove
think
interesting.
on Thursday night at a bar. So I expect there to be lots of drinking. And of course, the drunker you get, the harder the questions become.
You know what's even better? Is you ask the question, and if they get it wrong, you have to drink. You are screwed, brother.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Not that I'm not in line for a new liver anyway.
No, every time
we
someone
weren't
uses the
going
word eldritch, you have to do a shot.
Yeah, we could do that. So, what happened to Mike?
I don't know. He's
I'm back.
computating or something.
No, you doubled.
Am I?
Well,
I lost. What happened was I lost internet.
It's not late.
I don't know
your
why.
doppelganger went away. You had a frozen smile for a while.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you now.
I don't know what I missed, but Niels, if you want to join, no pressure, but just email me and I'll send you the link.
Can you one of you send me Neil's address, or does he have it on that post?
Yeah. Because
yeah.
one of the things I got to ask Neil is it Sam Gafford who's in charge of the panels? I thought I heard that a long time ago, but I'm not sure.
I thought Joe Shea was involved with that.
I thought that Joey Zone was doing something else. I didn't know he was the panel guy.
I know what I was going to
Well,
say.
we
When
need some clarity. We need Niels to come in and save the day, like
Yeah.
Superman.
In the meantime, we got a hell of a. I got a really nice Christmas present last year, and
Okay.
what this means and why I'm bringing this up is now I can do live video at NecronomiCon, like on Meerkat and Periscope, these new apps they have for iPhone,
There you go.
and stream them on Twitter or the Facebook page or the website or whatever. So.
Oh God. Between Griffin and taking all his pictures and you with video now, I think that puts us all in uncomfortable territory.
Neil says Sam is the coordinator for the panels. He just posted it.
Well, there we go.
So,
There we go.
who's got Sam's email?
Yeah, I have Sam's email.
Yeah, if one of you can send me that.
Can you send it to me and Rick, please?
Abso-fraggin-lutely.
Well, I get all kinds of people asking me for that can't go,
Cool, thank you.
video and pictures and stuff. So, thought I'd bring that up.
Why? You can. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things I wish there were video from the last time.
What?
I took a ton of pictures last year, and I ended up taking. It's like I'm thinking I'm not going to do that this year. I'd rather just enjoy it myself, because it takes a bit of effort to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny you said that, Matt, because Mandy and I have this, because we got little kids, right? And they've been to they've done ballet and they've done gymnastics and whatnot, and nothing drives us batty more than all these people with their iPhones and cameras and iPods, all trying to document this stuff and fighting to get these pictures, and not actually watching what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I go to these things, it's like you're part of it. I don't think about, I should take a picture of this.
Right. Yeah.
But honestly, I would love to not take any pictures, and I agree with you, Pete. But I try to strike a balance between.
I think that there should be. I think Mike. I think that you are the perfect person who should be taking lots of pictures. You're running the eZine. You're essentially press.
Yeah, that's what I feel like I owe the people that
Right.
be there that follow Lovecraft eZine.
Yeah. There's just too much of it, and I get that you want to document your kids' stuff, but really, seriously, are you going to watch? How many times are you going to watch a 2-hour ballet recital from when your kid's 4?
I mean, if you think about it, it's like you go to a convention, and I'll pick on my first Necronomicon where I got to hang out in the bar one night with Brian McNaughton, who I had never met. I didn't stop to think about taking pictures. I was having too much fun hanging out with Brian. You can't buy that. The picture's nice and all. So if it's one of your daughter's first things at school, you want to be able to remember that. Yeah, the pictures are nice, but if you didn't see it, experience it, we'll go to the pictures.
Right. That's my point.
Todd's watching the show. He's like, yeah, some people had to go and get married at the last one.